Hello and welcome to the world of NDE 4.0. My name is Johannes Rana, and today is a great day because today I'm invited to give this presentation at SHM NDT 2023. So thanks a lot for that. Now, but before we really get into the topic of NDE 4.0, let me show you a little bit my path to NDE 4.0. Now, I always loved technology, and that was the younger version of myself. This was my 8th birthday, and I got that keyboard to my 8th birthday. And I was so happy on that day because I had this piece of technology in my hands and could be using it. Now, this led to me studying physics and getting into quantum optics and quantum computers. And what you can see here, this is an experiment where we proved for the first time the entanglement between a single photon and a single atom. And that experiment is now becoming kind of the basis if you want to do a communication channel between two different quantum computers. Yeah, what you need for that is you need entanglement between the two of them. So this experiment is really the basis to do that. But already back then I knew quantum computers will be at least 20 years out. And finally now, 2023, 2024, they are becoming reality. But I wanted to do something which was already more attached to reality already back then. So I got into non-destructive testing. I did my PhD on induction thermography, and afterwards I started working on ultrasonic testing. And here you can see another version of myself standing next to this large inspection system for ultrasonic testing of forgings. And that was a pretty interesting time because back in that time, we had a lot of research projects. For example, we developed SAFT for the inspection of those rotor forgings for production facilities. And that is now being used for everyday production on those forgings. And we also had a development project, which now actually turns out to be my first NDE 4.0 project. And I will tell you about that project later on. Now, at about the same time, I started working on my own company, and I became my own boss somewhere around 2017. And at about the same time, I also approached ASNT, the American Society for Non-Destructive Testing, if we shouldn't be doing an NDE 4.0 session at their annual conference. And they said, yes, you can do that, but we have another gentleman who wants to do the exact same thing. That was the moment I met for the first time Ripi Singh. And yeah, we met for the first time in Houston. We went for a couple of beers, and what we saw is we disagreed on about everything. So we started discussing, and those discussions really became the most fruitful collaboration which I have up to the moment in my lifetime. That led to us writing a lot of papers on NDE 4.0, that led to us doing the book The World of NDE 4.0, which is now available through ASNT. And this also was the start of our workshops we are doing on NDE 4.0 and on digital transformation. That's it with my journey. Now, how did NDE get to NDE 4.0? Now, if we think back into history about NDE 4.0, we can see that NDE really started with humans. Right from the beginning of time, when they produced something, they wanted to know how good is that quality. And they used what they had. And that was their senses, their human senses. Eyes, ears, noses, tongue, whatever. To really get the quality, to assure that the quality was good enough. Now, with the development of technology, it became methods really to expand on those human senses, to look into some electromagnetic waves which we humans cannot see, or to hear something which our ears can normally not hear. So ultrasonics or X-ray or infrared or whatever you can imagine. And that actually also enabled the view into the components, like here with X-ray, but the same is true with ultrasonics. That is now what I call NDE 2.0. Now, with the third industrial revolution, with all the microprocessors getting around, with all the computers coming, it was possible to actually create digital NDE equipment, and that is NDE 4.0. Now, this is an example of an ultrasonic inspection system, again for large rotor forgings. And here I have a second example. That's an induction thermography system, which we created. And by the way, that is not me. That was one of my interns back then. And that was a quite handy system because you had this induction coil where you can move to the component and do the inspection at the component. And then we added a small infrared camera on top of it and a small screen, and we were able to go to the component, do the excitation, get all the results done within half a second, see the results on the screen, and mark on the screen where there is something we could see, and then save it back into a database. And now we are coming to NDE 4.0, but before getting to it, now we have to discuss one thing, and that is here we hear, though this is the digital revolution. And I bet you have heard about the term digital transformation, which is associated with NDE 4.0. But what does digital transformation mean? What are we actually transforming in this fourth revolution? And this is the example we all know. We are transforming a caterpillar to a butterfly. And we can see how radical that change is, how radical that transformation is. So the question comes up, what are we really transforming? And how radical will be that transformation, speaking about digital transformation? So far, so good. Now, before we really get into the digital transformation, let me show you a little bit, okay, how to get a better understanding what digital transformation is. So let me take you one step back. Let me take you to the Industrialized Society, which was established somewhere during the first Industrial Revolution and then really redefined in the second Industrial Revolution. But we didn't have any digital technology back at that point. So what we have in that industrialized society at the end of the second industrial revolution, we have our ecosystem. And within that ecosystem, we have governance, we have companies and research institutes, and we have our consumers. Now, if we look into the companies, then we can see, okay, in the companies, we have policies, we have processes, and we have leadership. We need all of that to run our companies. And to run the individual processes, we need procedures, we need equipment, and we need people. Now, what happened with the third revolution? With the third revolution, we started to digitize. We digitized the equipment. We changed the format, how we store the data. So no matter whether it's a sheet of paper or an audio information or whatever, we now stored all of that in the same zeros and ones, using the same hard drives, the same CDs, the same floppy disks. And it was easy to copy them over without any losses. Now, after we had all of that information available in a digital format, people thought about, okay, now how can we simplify our lives? And that is digitalize. To simplify isolated processes. So that could be various isolated processes. That could be using an Excel tool to simplify some of your processes. That could be an ERP system in your company to simplify how you do your banking or your HR. That could be an AI solution to simplify how you actually view your UT data. Or that could be a ChatGPT which simplifies the isolated task of writing an essay. All of that is digitalized. And now let's think one step further, because all of these digitalization solutions have one drawback. They are isolated. And you calculate something with this Excel tool, and then you print it, most likely. You give it to somebody else, and then that person takes that information and puts it back into the computer. So between all of those digitalization solutions, we need the human to transfer the data. And that is the main key which is changing with digital transformation, at least from a technology standpoint. Because now we are interlinking all of the different digitalization solutions so that the information gets automatically from point A to point B. And that helps us to actually go one step further, to actually digitally transform the companies, to digitally transform the business side of it. Now, how is all of that connected to NDE 4.0 and to NDE? Now, digitize, that's NDE 3.0. Now, a large part of NDE 4.0 is using all the emerging technologies out of Industry 4.0 for NDE purposes. So using an AI to enhance our NDE results, a blockchain to make sure that nobody changes our NDE results once they are stored, a drone to fly up to some positions where we don't want to be as a human, 5G to have better connectivity, or a quantum computer to help us do data processing. Now, all of those are digitalization solutions. They're all very valuable for NDE, and that's the digitalization of NDE. And it's a big part of NDE 4.0. But there is a second part to NDE 4.0, and that is using NDE data actually to enhance Industry 4.0 processes. So to use NDE data for a better prediction of lifetime, to using NDE data for a better prediction of how the production will run, how to improve the design, how to improve the production, how to improve the maintenance. Using NDE data in digital twins, using or putting NDE data into the industrial Internet of Things. Now, all of this is integrating NDE into the digital transformation of industry. That's the second big part. So both digitalization and digital transformation are NDE 4.0. And we should keep both in mind. But there's a third factor to it, and that is human considerations. We are doing all of this for us. So we should be thinking about, okay, how do we improve our lives? How do we improve our experience as an inspector? And so on and so on. We should have all those human considerations in mind. Now, we talked about NDE 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, that we are coming from all the analog technology to all the digital technologies and now getting into this interconnected cyber-physical. So how is this connected to digitize, digitalize, and digital transform? It's pretty simple. So yeah, in the beginning, that was all analog. With the third revolution, we got into digitize, and pretty soon we got into digitalize, which is still ongoing in the fourth revolution. It started in the third, and it's just now moving into the fourth. But now the core of the fourth is really starting once we get into digital transform. So let's have a look into a few examples. First example. Now this is a German public-funded project called AIFRI, artificial intelligence for rail inspections. And what we're doing here, we have about 88,000 kilometers of tracks in Germany, and I bet it's a lot more in China. And all those tracks are inspected annually with ultrasonics and eddy current. And those results are currently, they are recorded with such inspection trains, put on a hard drive, and then that hard drive is shipped by mail to the inspector sitting in some office and then looking through all of those results, kind of manually, visually, by hand. And that is the reason why we started this project. We want to help those inspectors so that they do not have to do 365 days a year scrolling through all the data and trying to find something. An AI which is giving them a hint that there could be something. And within that project, we also said, okay, we should be going away from actually the proprietary formats we currently have to a more open one. And we chose DICONDI for it. But for us, the most important step in that project is quantifying how good are the results using AI versus using humans. So POD assessments. How reliable is the human versus how reliable is our new solution? If you think about it, what we are doing here is we are simplifying an isolated process. So this is a digitalization solution. Another example, imagine you have an inspection company and you get a request from your customer. You have to write a proposal, you have to schedule and dispatch the personnel, you go on the job, you do the job, you write the report, and finally you have to write the invoice. Now currently, what you most likely will do, you have about 6 or 7 different Excel sheets to do all of those steps in a consecutive order. Now imagine you would have a tool, actually one single tool which helps you guide through all of that process. And that is stuff which is now available already on the market by various suppliers. Now, this one is showing one, but there are others out there. Now also here, now we are already getting into, we are connected several steps, but in essence, it's still simplifying an isolated process. So again, here we have a digitalization solution for NDE 4.0. Now in the beginning of this presentation, I already talked about that there was a project which I did prior to the start of NDE 4.0, which is now actually my first NDE 4.0 project, and that's this one. So what happened is, one day I was approached by some fracture mechanics colleagues, and they wanted to have more knowledge about our components so that they could calculate the remaining lifetime more accurately. And what they wanted to know, okay, what sensitivities can you achieve? How is that distributed? How are your indications distributed? How are the indication sizes distributed? What is the POD? Because they wanted to convert our information into something which is really useful in real life. And how to convert NDE results, NDE sizes, into something they can use in fracture mechanics. So what we did is we built up, or what we needed reports we could digitally analyze, we needed a database to store all the values, and we needed the necessary analysis tools. And we built all of that. And we also built an engine to import all the reports and to analyze it. And yeah, this project was successful. It was incredibly successful. We could actually show the customers that the lifetime of the components is longer than we expected. We didn't have to do any additional inspections. We didn't have to change anything on the design, just by using the data we already have just by using the NDE data we are recording anyway. And now you can see, now we are combining NDE with fracture mechanics. So we are really getting closer here towards a digital transformation. Now, that was a project which was started somewhere 2013-14. And by now, I would be doing this a little bit different because those interfaces between NDE and fracture mechanics, that was a proprietary interface. By now, I wouldn't do that anymore. By now, I would most likely get on board with OPC UA. And there is currently a joint working group between the German Society for Non-Destructive Testing, the VDMA, and the OPC Foundation, which is led by Frank Leinenbach, and they are in the process of developing an ontology for NDE so that you can actually read and write NDE data, and not just NDE data, also all the job descriptions, the job planning, and all of that, to have all of the communication through OPC UA. And that is where we are really getting into digital transformation. So far, so good. Now, you might have heard that a lot of digital transformations fail. Why? And actually, in 2016, Forbes did an assessment that the risk of failure in digital transformation is somewhere around the order of magnitude of 84%. Why is that the case? They also looked into the reasons, and they found out that most of those reasons, especially the ones which are ranked very highly and were the reason for a lot of failures, was not the technology. It was the human mind. It was the human mindset. And they concluded that actually, yeah, humans are the problem with digital transformation, but they are also the only solution. Now, what we learned also during our workshop and consulting on NDE 4.0 is that people get to digital transformation like every other project, they know. Every other project they know from their project management, from Lean or Six Sigma. But digital transformation is not a project. NDE 4.0 is not a project. It is a journey. It is a journey which will take you multiple years. It will be a journey where you will have to do multiple projects at the same time and multiple projects one after the other. You will have to learn on the way. The end is not clear. Only once you recognize that the end is not clear, then perhaps your digital transformation might be successful. Because you must create it. And I bet you have heard the term together is better. Now with digital transformation, this actually becomes together is the only way. And in our process towards digital transformation in NDE 4.0, we have been helping a variety of customers with multi-day workshops, coachings, and consultings. And what we do for example, in those workshops, we go to the customer and we work together with the customer to get a good insight about their pains and gains, to ideate about what could be good solutions for them, to create value propositions, to create a roadmap, and finally to start the first projects, and then to work consecutively towards a purpose. Now, some of the projects, they will change on that roadmap, but the purpose will be staying. And identifying the real purpose is perhaps the most important thing you have to do before you get on the roadmap, on the road to NDE 4.0. You want to have some more information? There is the handbook of NDE 4.0, which is available by Springer. The price is a little bit hefty. It's about 800 or 900 euros, but you can actually get the individual chapters. You can buy the individual chapters, and you can get it from your library. And last but not least, we're currently working on the second edition of this handbook. So if you have a good idea for an additional chapter, you can approach us, the editors. And then once your chapter was accepted and put into the second edition, then you will actually get an electronic copy of that book for free. You get free access to that book. Could be interesting for some of you. There's also the book, The World of NDE 4.0. Now that book is much more reasonably priced. This one is about, I think about $60, something like that. It's available through ASNT. And there is now also a Portuguese version available. And the Spanish version will follow pretty soon. And there's another book which is called How to Embrace NDE 4.0, which was written by Ripi and Ramon. And this is more how to create a roadmap for NDE 4.0. There's also a variety of papers out there. Now, those are the ones we have written. There is one on kind of on the basics of NDE 4.0, which is called NDE 4.0, a design thinking perspective. There is a technical deep dive on IoT, on digital twins, and so on. There's one where we are talking more about the value perception on NDE and how NDE 4.0 can help with value creation. There is one chapter out of the handbook which is talking about digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. There's one where we are talking in detail about multiple success stories. And there is one which is really about the roadmap. Now, I guess you know there have been a lot of special issues about NDE 4.0. One was from the Journal of NDE, one was from Materials Evaluation, one was from RNDE. And now actually NDT and E approached me that they wanted to do a special issue. And that call for papers is now out. So if you have an interesting paper about NDE 4.0, and especially about bringing together physics, data, and automation in NDT and E 4.0, then this could be your good chance. There's also an international conference on NDE 4.0. The first one was virtual, the second one was in Berlin, and the third one will be in Bangalore, India. And perhaps China wants to do the fourth one. Let's see. There's also a Wikipedia article about NDE 4.0. And yeah, we need all your support for that one. To fill this article with life, to add and correct to this article, and to translate to other languages. For example, to Chinese. There is an NDE 4.0 YouTube channel where I try to put some interesting things about NDE 4.0 and also about ultrasonics, and to show you a very in-depth information. So if you find the topic interesting, go there. You will find more interesting content. Thank you for paying attention to me, and I hope that all of you will be starting to work on NDE 4.0. And I hope that one day I will be able to actually come to China and to meet all of you in person. So thanks once more for the invitation. Thank you and bye.